In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Good evening, everyone. Christos Anesti, Christ is risen. And we continue after a short break to continue our study of the first epistle of St. Peter. And we're still at chapter 2. We're still at chapter 2. As we said before, we're taking it easy. We're going slow as we dig deeper and deeper into the scripture itself and see exactly how is that very relevant to us, as we said from the beginning as we started the studying the epistle of St. Peter, and how much relevant that is to our day and age, and how much that is relevant to our struggles. Again, the idea that St. Peter is taking it upon himself as he took the commission from the Lord himself, go and strengthen your brethren, right? And then after he appeared to him again after the resurrection and told him, go and feed my sheep. So he took this upon himself, and as he knew that the people, the faithful, have been going through tribulation, going through hardships, going through hard time, he's telling them basically that there is hope. This is, again, just keep remembering this. This is the epistle of hope for everybody, not just for them at that time, for us now. Hope in the time of, or hope in spite of, as we said early on, hope in spite of the challenges and tribulations. So talk to them about the hope, why we are hopeful, why we should be hopeful, and then talk to them about, again, if you are hopeful, live with that hope, how the lifestyle should be different. We can't just say we have hope and then we're still living the same life. So he's telling them, as we've seen in the beginning of chapter 2, that you have to live a different life. If you are really hopeful, if you are really hoping in the Lord and his power and his resurrection, in the glory that is coming after the tribulation, you have to show that with your action. Live a different lifestyle. And then in the beginning of chapter 2, we talked a lot about who we are, our identity, basically, talking about us as several stones that are all depending on the one cornerstone. He is the cornerstone. We are living stones, if you remember that. And if you remember, why did we say that he's calling each one of us living stone? Why living stone? Remember that we talked about this before. Why living? What's the impression here of him calling us living stones, not just stones? It's everyday, it's dynamic, and most important, it's what? It's eternal, it's forever. It's forever. So that living stone means it never dies. So we are that corner, we are that living stones that in the construction of the Lord. And if you remember, we made a kind of like a quick comparison between, are we building for the Lord or building for ourselves or for the world, right? And that's different, the contrast between both of those. Come with that, again, the end of the passage that we read last time, which is, again, the core of our identity. Again, he's telling them that remember who you are stone or corner, or you are living stones in that building, in order to form what? To form what he concludes this at the end of this passage that we read last time in chapter 2, which is that we are his own people, right? Remember that we concluded that in verse 9 and 10 specifically, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And we've talked about this before, the idea of what does it mean that we are his own people, his own possession, the royal priesthood. But what is one common thing in all those characters or all those specifics that form our identity? What is that? That we are all what? We all belong to whom? To one God, right? So the in without really pointing out, it has a very, very, very common theme when he says that you are his people, possession, royal priesthood, holy nation, that we all what? We all not just have mercy, no, there's something more important. We all belong to him. So that means that we are all one, the unity. As simple as that. As simple as that. You know, if I am a chosen race and you are a chosen race, that means that we are all one. All one. One of the fathers talk about this in a very, very beautiful way. You know, before, just to remind you, we read together the mindset of Saint Augustine when he says that, if you remember this, that we're all, the Lord will repay his faithful followers who are so lovingly, so cheerfully, so devotedly carrying out these works, to the effect that he includes them in the construction of his own building. He includes us in the construction of his own building, into which they hasten to fit as living stones, fashioned by faith, made solidly firm by hope, and what? Cemented together by, if you remember this, charity. Yes. Again, that he, to the effect that he includes them in the construction of his own building. He includes every one of us in the construction of his own building. What does that building look like? How are we all constructed together and built together, fit together, into which they hasten to fit as living stones, fashioned by faith, made solidly firm by hope, and cemented together by charity. Cemented together by charity. And then another church father, Theodoret of Cyrene, says, this is how Peter describes the way in which those who have been accepted by God are integrated into the church. This is how he describes those who have been accepted to God are integrated into the church, meaning what? We're all one. It is by sharing a common origin and by being in harmony with one another. By sharing a common origin and being in harmony with one another. By thinking and by saying the same things. That's exactly what St. Paul says, right? All have the same mind. The same mind. By thinking and saying the same things, by having the same mind and the same thoughts, that we are built into one house for the Lord. So when we hear this, that we are his people, royal priesthood, his nation and everything, that gives us that mindset again, that we are all sharing the same mind. All having the same mind. And that's why it's very important, again, when we say that we have a fellowship together, it is very important because we're all strengthening each other with that same mind in order to move towards that construction and that building. His own special people, that you may proclaim the praise of him who called you out of darkness into the marvelous of light. Yes. Yes, in Ephesians, one body, one spirit, one mind, one baptism, one faith, right? So it is the same idea here. When we hear that we are all have the same origin, as it said, that means that we are all one, regardless of who we are, regardless of who is weak, who's strong, who is good, who's bad. We are all living stones in the one construction. And the one construction depends on each and every living stone, that we're all together in harmony. After this, the second or the next passage here, St. Peter is actually pointing our mind towards something that's very, very important, which is, in one word, this is all, the next passage here is all about, or the remainder of the chapter is basically all under emphasizing one mind and one thought, which is how to submit to the Lord. How to submit to the Lord? By submitting to each other and by submitting to government and to authorities, and to submit to relationship also in each other. So that's what he is talking about, and that's why again, when we read this in the matrimony, in the service of the marriage, and then we take, usually that passage is very, very troublesome to people, especially to females. Like, how come the church is saying only wife submit to your husband and doesn't say anything else? Again, this is taken out of context, and really it should be the same thing. If you read the whole passage, even in Ephesians, that same thing that St. Paul is saying, that we are all submitting to God. But then there are examples, the example of this and this and this, as you'll see here. Same thing here in St. Peter. The first example is submission to the life as a believer, the believer as a citizen, and then as a worker, and then as a marriage partner, and then as a member of the Christian assembly together. So again, just taking one part and focusing on it doesn't really give the full meaning of what is it like. But again, if we're talking about submission, why do you think after all that preaching and that encouraging of St. Peter to the people, he switches to that important part of actually submitting, or submission in general? When we submit, whether to each other or to authorities or to our spouses or everything, what does it mean when we submit? What does it mean to each one of us? Putting aside what I want. So I'm taking myself, away from whatever that circumstances is. What else? Christina? Humbling yourself. What else? Yes. Obedient. Yes. What else? Putting yourself in the hands of God. Yes. Basically submitting to God. Basically submitting to God. And when I submit to God, that means what? That He is in control. That He's in control. One of the things that we're always struggling with, right? Like, I don't want Him to be in control. I know that He's in control, but I want to be in control of every single thing in my life. But when we say, okay, He is in control, we have to translate this into our relationship. I cannot say that He is in control and then, I am controlling my relationship, or I'm controlling my life, or I'm controlling whether I agree with one thing or another. We can't. So submission, again, it doesn't mean slavery, or doesn't mean that, I am putting myself lower than anybody else, but it means that God is in control. God is in control. And usually the problem is when we look into that we don't want God to be in control, right? So if you look at any example of being non-submissive, that basically because what? Because of pride. Because no, I want to be in control. So we'll look at this passage here and see exactly what is St. Peter trying to tell them. But again, my question is, why is submission coming here after a long passage of talking about hope, talking about different lifestyle, talking about being a cornerstone? Why all those things? Why then he switches to, or continues, not switches, continues his thought with that mindset of being submissive to each other?
I think that he's talking to particular people who are in a state of having to, whether be persecuted.
Okay.
Particular audience, in this case, one aspect of it. Not as, speaking to us too, but I keep remembering that to whom he's talking, the people of Asia and who are conceivably in foreign lands and trying to survive and trying to survive on their own. And so part of the message is, the message actually goes back to seeing the Lord on the cross and how He submitted himself, and He's the example to follow.
Yes.
And it's part of the full message and the complete message with the particular people who are in a very particularly bad state.
Right.
And they're being asked to submit, and
he's trying to, as you're saying, David, that he's addressing his letter to people who are under trouble, under challenges, under persecution, right? And most of the time when we are under challenges like that, the first thing that we do is to do what? The reaction is always what? Exactly. Instead of submitting, we try to do what? We either rebel, like, why is this happening to me, right? Or we try to do it on our own, right? But what he's trying to say that the key for accepting the challenges, accepting the tribulations, is to do what? Is to submit, right? So that's basically the practical reaction, the practical way of accepting the tribulation is to submit. And saying submit, I cannot just, okay, I'll submit, because if I'm submitting to God that He's in control, I have to show this in what? In my action, my relationship with other people. So let's read the passage and see where is this going and what we can take for ourselves. Again, I'm reading from the ESV as usual, from 1 Peter 2:13. Be subject to the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme, or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do God. Let's take it back again from verse 11, because I don't think we did verse 11. So I'm sorry, let's go back to verse 11. Yes, we finished Ed, but now you have received mercy. So verse 11, sorry. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Let's just take those two verses first and then move on to the next. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. So here, again, he's telling them that this is your identity. You are the royal priesthood. You are the holy nation, his own possession. And if this is your identity, you better do what? Live it. How do we live it? Live it by what? But by changing and putting that theory of identity into an action. In verse 10, he is mentioning, verse 11, I'm sorry, he's mentioning basically four things. So if we after identifying ourselves as his people, his nation, so on, he goes back again in verse 11, and he puts, if I put the question, who are we? There are four things in verse 11 that identify again, who are we? What are those four things? Sojourners. Okay, before sojourners, is there anything else? Beloved. First of all, we are beloved. Second, we are sojourners. Third, we are pilgrims. And fourth, we are what? It's hidden in that verse, but if you pick it up, you're very smart. Soldiers, exactly. Thanks, Christina. Why soldiers? Because he says what? There's war. So again, he is emphasizing the idea that we are different by saying those four things. You are beloved, you are sojourners, you are exiles, and you are soldiers. How does that change our understanding of our relationship? First of all, beloved. Why beloved is very important. God is love. He loves us, exactly. So that relationship is based, as we say always, is based on what? On love. right? Actually, I was reading, it says in First Peter that particular word is repeated 8 times. He repeated 8 times. You are beloved. You are beloved. So as he's telling them now, okay, you need to live this life, he's saying, first of all, you need to live this life based on what? That you are beloved. Nothing else. Nothing else. And because of that, you will live as sojourners, you will live as exiles, and you are ready to do what? To fight. To fight. So that's something that is really important for us to understand, that in order to continue and to put that identity that he kind of portrayed for us, that we are his nation, his royal priesthood, his own people, then the summary of that you are beloved, you are strangers, as he mentioned in the beginning of the letter, of the epistle, and you are sojourners, and you are what? Warriors. There is a war. A lot of times, especially with the war, a lot of times we like, okay, why are we still under attack, right? Like, why, when will this ever end, right? You know, it never ends. As long as we are on the life, it never ends. Never ends. But before this, he mentioned again, the order of this is very, very important, right? The soldiers came after what? After you're beloved, after you are sojourners, and after you are in exile, right? So we know what are we fighting for. Otherwise, that fight will be very, very what? Hopeless. Hopeless. Again, imagine that you are fighting for another country that you have no relationship to whatsoever. Like, what am I doing here? Right? Right? But if we know that we are sojourners, if we know that we are in exile, that we know that we are beloved, and then we are in this fight, then it makes sense. Right? Actually, I'll fight to death because I know that I'm beloved. I'll fight to death because I know that this is not my home. I'll fight for my home. Right? So other than that, again, and usually again, this idea is lots of time is very vague. So all what we see is what we're fighting. And like, do you know what you're fighting for? Like, I have no idea. Right? They told me to be good. Right? It doesn't make sense. And it's very, very exhausting and very, very, very frustrating. But he's trying to tell them here, be careful and know, and before there is the war that is waging against you, know before that you are not alone, you are beloved. You are fighting because you do not belong to this life. That's why you need to fight for your home country. And you know that this is a part and a time that was what, as he said earlier, it is what, for a very short time, for a very short time. So, beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable. What is he trying to say here by keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable? What is he trying to tell them? As an example, right? And here the Gentiles, not just the Gentiles by its actual meaning, but anybody who doesn't believe, anybody who doesn't know Christ. But more important, the word honorable. What do you think of this? Yes, yes. So why honorable? Because you're representing Christ. Actually, I was looking at this more and more. The word honorable actually is kalos, which is beautiful. So it's not just as honorable, but as what? Beautiful. So when we are keeping our conduct among the Gentiles, we keep it in a what? In a beautiful way. in a beautiful way. It's a little bit different than honorable. Why? Because beautiful is beautiful, right? Beautiful attracts people. Everybody likes to look at something that's beautiful. I have to say this as I just came back from Egypt for my dad's 40th memorial, and the college that he was teaching for 55 years had that beautiful ceremony for him, celebrating his life and his academic career and his everything. And the school that he teaches at is all mostly Muslim, and very few. So they had this huge big celebration over probably 60, 70, 80 people or so. All of them are Muslim, except for 2 professors who are Christians. And every single person who knew him came up and said a word. And all of them agreed on one thing, that this person was not normal. And all of them agreed that they were so attracted to him. And imagine when you hear a person that is Muslim and is saying, we are all on your faith. كلنا على دينك. And it was exactly what St. Paul is saying here, what St. Peter is saying here, right? That they found him beautiful. And they all said this. He didn't only teach us science and academia, but he taught us everything. Everything, life, conduct, behavior, everything. And as we were going home after this and talking among each other and repeating what they said, it was basically all what they said was the fruit of the Holy Spirit, without them knowing. Yes. The reason I'm saying this, because that's exactly what is required from each one of us, right? My dad was a very simple person, very humble person. But with that, he was able to beautifully attract everybody to Christ without knowing. They were praising him. Actually, they were praising Christ without knowing that they were praising Christ. And that is the miracle. And we are following your faith. They say this in Arabic. It's a expression, كلنا على دينك. We are all following your faith, your belief. So when you hear this from non-Christian, it's very, very, yes, that we are agreeing that your faith is the right faith. It's a religious reference. Yes. So that's exactly what St. Peter is saying here. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable. Keep it beautiful. The beauty attracts everybody. Nobody will repel from beauty. So keep it beautiful. How can we keep it beautiful? By allowing God and allowing the Spirit to beautify ourselves. So we're not walking with our own beauty because we have nothing. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. What is the day of the visitation? Day of visitation. What is the day of visitation? Not the day of judgment. No, that's why I'm pointing this out, because we understand it as the day of, not the grace of visitation. No. Here again, read it. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. No. Day of visitation. What do you think? That's the second coming. No. Exactly. When God is visiting each person to tell him, you know what, I'm here, then they will be ready because of what? Of the beauty that they've seen in the faithful. Right. Right. That's happened. Yes, yes, yes. The day of visitation, when God is ready to visit each one and to tell him, you know what, this is the time I want you. Not necessarily the day of judgment. No, when God is revealing himself to people, that they are ready to accept that visitation and accept that revelation based on what they've seen in his faithful. Yes. Yes. Same as revelation before. We talked about this. Revelation wasn't the revelation that we understand. No, the revelation when he shows himself to the people who are in need to see him. Right? And again, it comes very, very, very relevant to Peter himself. Because Christ revealed himself to him after denial, and Christ visited him after denial. Right? So he lived that. He lived that as a person that was actually at one point almost what? Cast out. I was reading through this again, through the grammar of this. The radical idea of the word is that of observing or inspecting. So the word in Greek is episkopin, which from it episkopos, which is overseer. So visitation is seer. Right? So he says, hence, and over the visiting grows naturally out of this as a visitor from vizier, to look at attentively, So here, the day of visitation is the day of looking upon, when God shall look upon these wanderers as a pastor over his flock. Which points out something very, very important to each one of us, which is what? So if you take it, if we understand this correct, that the day of the visitation, when God look upon his wanderers as a pastor over his flock, over his flock, right? And that day is depending on what? On my action showing them the beauty of Christ. See the beauty of this? So that means, again, if God is coming to visit somebody that is in need, and that person did not see the beauty of God in the faithful, that opportunity might what? Pass. Because of whom? Because of me. See where I'm going with this? Right? Again, he's telling them, again, this is very important. Keep your conduct among the Gentile beautiful. Right? If I don't keep my conduct among the people who are not believers beautiful, and the day of visitation come to them, they might miss that opportunity. Why? Because they never seen that beauty in me. So again, what does that tell us? Take responsibility on us. That the day of the visitation depends on me showing the beauty to the Gentiles or not. So again, as you always say, it's not just about me. No. If I'm not allowing God, I'm allowing the Holy Spirit to beautify me and not showing that beauty to the people, then if the day of visitation comes, they will skip it because they don't know. Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. So instead of honoring, instead of taking that opportunity of that visitation, they will actually what? Curse and blaspheme against. So this is how St. Peter closes this chapter again, or this passage again, which is, again, you are the living stones. You are constructing that building, right? In harmony, in unity, in oneness. And because of that, you have to understand again that you are beloved, you are sojourners, you are living in exile, and you are soldiers to continue that fight based on that. And why all that? Because you have a responsibility that you need to keep your conduct beautiful among people. So when God visits them, they're ready. They're ready. So what does that need? It needs submission. There you go again. Needs submission again, especially if he's talking about that you're beloved. You are, again, so you're submitting, not because, as I was just saying, not because you are slaves, but because you are loved. So the idea of submission here is totally different than what we understand on our normal relationship. Because he told them that before, you are beloved. You are not from this world. You are from a different country. You're from different citizenship, right? You are a big part of the whole story of salvation. Whether you show your beauty and you show his beauty, that in the time of visitation, people are ready or not. So with all that, you better what? Submit. You better submit. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governor as sent by him to punish those who are evil, praise those who do good. Human institution, what does that mean? I mean, we can go into discussion after discussion after discussion into this passage here, right? But what does it mean? Human institution. Be subject for the Lord to every human institution. What does that mean? Is it men or is it law or is it institution? Okay. Okay. Can I argue the fact that I am submitting to the institution but not to the law? I'll give you an example. So the disciples after Pentecost, right? And they were told by law not to go out and preach, right? What did they do? They went out and preached. So is this submission to the institution or denying a certain law that doesn't agree with God? What's the condition? What is the condition?
Wait until you get the Holy Spirit.
No, that's not the point.
A distinction between submitting to a government versus being under, you ultimately be answered to God, and if it doesn't agree with the governing body.
Right.
God.
Yes, because here it says, well, be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, right? So the human institution is the institution, right? But if that human institution has a law that is against the Lord's sake, you don't have to, right? Exactly. Daniel and the three youth. That's a very good example, right? They honored the king, but they disobeyed the decree. Same reason the army. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So what does that tell us? God is the head of everything. Exactly. God is the head of everything. And that's why, again, when I submit to the human institution, why? For God's sake. For God's sake. Because again, and this is why here, the passage here is clear that later on when he says that in verse 15, when he says that, for this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. What is that? So doing good, which means what? Again, obeying the institution, obeying the government. So by doing this, we put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. What is the ignorance of foolish people? No, here he's saying that the foolish people are those people who believe that Christians are troublemakers, are rebellers, or again, remember the whole idea of the epistle when Neron burned Rome and they said that, okay, the Christians are the one and they are troublemakers and they are here to make a revolution. And he's saying by obeying, you're putting to silence the ignorance of foolish one, that Christians are what? Are rebels, are against the law. So the main idea here is saying what? Don't put the gospel of the Lord under attack, under being under, a threat, right? To understand this more and more, there is a beautiful quote here from Didymus the Blind. Didymus the Blind, we know from the 4th century, he's the dean of one of the churches, one of the deans of the school of Alexandria in the 4th century. Listen to this, because this makes it very, very clear. But I had to read it several times, and I had to I called Christy. Christy, help me understand this because I don't understand it. So I'm confessing my ignorance here. But here it is. The proclaimers of the truth take all opportunity for wrongdoing away from us by describing how we should behave toward those who are in power. What does that mean? Again, the proclaimers of the truth take all opportunity for wrongdoing away from us. So those who proclaim the truth, which is St. Peter and St. Paul and this, are doing what? Take all opportunity for wrongdoing away from us. They don't want us to do wrong. By doing what? By describing how we should behave toward those who are in power, right? So those who are the truth, or the proclaimers of truth, are taking away any opportunity for us to do wrong by describing how we should behave toward those who are in power, in such a way that the gospel and its teaching will not be hindered. That's the important thing. In such a way that the gospel and its teaching will not be hindered by us through our unwillingness to do what they require of us to do. So that's the whole idea. Here are the Christians. Here's the teaching of the Bible, right? Here is what they believe in. So again, the proclaimers of truth are taking away any opportunity for wrongdoing by teaching us how to behave towards those who are in authority or in power in such a way that the gospel and its teaching will not be hindered by us through our unwillingness to do what they require of us, and by telling us to be subject to them when it's clear that they are doing something in accordance with just law. And again, we can open several discussions nowadays with everything that's going on around us, right? With abortion, with transgender, with everything, right? But again, we still have to obey the institution. So I got into an argument when I was in Egypt actually about, okay, so what if, okay, something that's against the Bible and wants the church to validate a wedding or whatever. What would you do? It's already happening, right? As a church, as a person that is representing the church. That's in Egypt, right? Court order about divorce, for example, right? Said no, right? So again, and I think it's we're getting into that. Yes, William.
Ephesians, it talks about sitting, walking, standing, and it's really like standing against evil. Like you stand your ground, like it's really trying to force you to do something
Right.
that violates the law. You have to stand. It's a spiritual battle. God wins it, not us.
Right.
So the rebels think that they can beat it in their will.
Right.
Where the submissive Christian stands.
Yes.
And lets God do the battle.
Right.
But stands, makes clear that I'm standing.
Standing against that. Right. Right. Yes. And that's different between rebelling. Rebelling, I want to turn everything upside down, right? No, it's not my job. I'm submissive, but also I'm standing against what's wrong and what's right. That's why here in the beginning of this, he says this, that for the Lord's sake, right? And that comes again in different levels, not necessarily again government, but even at work, right? And I had too many conversations about this. What if, right? My boss is doing so and so and so, right? And should I go and tell so and so that something is going on wrong or something? Again, I think it's very clear. It's very clear. The institution is something and the law is something else. If the law is against the Lord's sake. And again, his point, St. Peter's point of bringing this up at this point is what is declaring that God is in control. God is in control. Our job is not to be rebels. Our job is not to turn governments down. That's not our job. We are Christians. We are citizens, yes. But if something that is against, not for God's sake, then I have the right to stand. I said, I will not do this. Right? I remember, for example, when I was a pharmacist and prescription come for abortion pill, for example. No, I have the right to say, no, I cannot dispense this. Yes. Yes. Needles. I remember several times, people would come and ask for a pack of needles and they come up with all those, crazy reasons. My grandmom's dog is diabetic. Like, come on, I know that's not your grandmother. I've been around for a while. I can understand this, but you know what? I cannot give you a pack of needles. How come? And this and that. Like, I will not give you needles. And some people, well, it's better to give them needles rather than reuse the needles. And like, no. For myself, my faith and my understanding, my personal understanding, that I will not give you a needle that you're going to use it for whatever. No, and nobody could tell me anything. That's my right. It's the pharmacist's right to dispense or not dispense needles, for example. At least the time I was practicing 10 years ago. It's the pharmacist's right to refuse to dispense abortion pill as long as there's either another pharmacist or another pharmacy in the same whatever parameters close to the pharmacy that is able to do that. But to me, I'm not able. I can't do this. No, nothing. So again, all this that particular part comes in every single lots of ways in our practical life. We come into situations like that, right? But again, the important thing here that we know that it is, are we really on the Lord's side or not? Do we have the boldness and the courage to say that this is what I believe or not? Be subject for the Lord's sake for every human institution, whether it is the emperor or supreme, or to governors as sent by him. Him here is referring to whom? As governors sent by the king. So not by God, because some people like governor. No, here he's talking about the emperor or the king, and his governors are sent by him to perform or to carry on the message itself, to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of the foolish people. That's very strong. It's very strong.
Thinking that they're acting against evildoers, thinking the Christians are evildoers.
Yes.
And it's also part of the equation of us acting as honorable, as that they themselves will maybe have a turning in their own
Right.
mind of seeing before them somebody who looks and comes across innocent
Right.
and reflection.
Yes.
And there's a possibility of turn.
Right. Because here again, it's like the good can be evil and the evil can be good, right? So it depends on how you look at it. That's why in the beginning of this passage, again, for the Lord's sake. So this is the title. This is the standard, for the Lord's sake, right? So whether, again, you know, the person or the governor or whoever is defining their own good and their own evil, we shouldn't be confused with that. Silence, ignorance, the foolish. Yes. Actually, it's funny, when I was looking at this passage, putting to silence is actually to muzzle. Muzzle is the al-kimama al-kalb, right? Like the covering the dog's mouth. That's how they are very thirsty to and hungry to attack. Right? So the language is very, very figurative here. Putting to muzzle.
I think the dogs get a bad rap with the Bible.
Sorry, Brian, I was just gonna say that, Brian. I was gonna say, forgive me, Brian. That's that's not in a bad way. But again, it's very figurative that, okay, these people can be actually attacking, right? Attacking. And that's why he continues again, live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Here's the key here. Live as people who are free. What is freedom here based on what? What defines my freedom? Servant of God. Here's the paradox, right? Live as free, but you are actually slave. But by slave, by what? By your own will, the doulos. It's a beautiful paradox. And St. Peter puts it in a beautiful way. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. And the actual Greek is doulos, servant by your own, servant by choice. That's the definition, servant by choice. Free man is a free man. Is liberty. One refuses to be a slave, right? So how can I refuse to be a slave? By not just by my conscience, by everything, right? I refuse to be under the burden of a certain habit. That's refusing to be a slave. Refuse to be a slave under the burden of food, right? I'm the first one, if you love food, right? Refuse to be a slave under certain character. I said, this is who I am, I cannot change. No, you can change. Don't say I cannot change. No, God is able and willing to change and transform. And he said that I will change the heart of stone and put heart of flesh. I'll give you a new life. That's why the first Sunday after resurrection is the new Sunday, Thomas Sunday. We call it in the church the new Sunday. Okay? Why? Because we're starting the joyful 50 days new. But again, very important that this freedom will never come up unless we submit. Again, this is the beautiful paradox. Most of the time we want to be free on our own, and we know exactly what to do, and we don't want anything and anybody to tell us what to do. And that's why, especially this time and age, we have less and less people submitting to spiritual fathers. Not to authorities. I don't like authorities. Just to the discipleship. Why don't we have discipleship? Because discipleship is based on what? Submission. Why? Because no, we know what to do. We don't want anybody to be interfering with my life and tell me what to do and what not to do. I know exactly what to do. But that's why we are losing the war that he was talking about. That's why we are not strong. That's why we are not all, as a church, we are not moving and growing. Because we don't want to submit.
Apply to what's happening now in the world, because in France and England, except for the coronation, otherwise there are rebellious everywhere.
That's the problem. That's the whole problem with any war, with any kind of
It's like all over.
of conflict. It all starts with that. Yes. It all starts with that on a personal level, and it goes on to the level of cities and countries and governments and everything.
Reflection to religious could be attributed to that.
It's attributed to, again, that man does not want to submit, right? And that's been since history is repeating itself. Look at World War I and II and before that and everything. It's all coming from the same root, right? That we refuse to submit to God, and we refuse to live in peace and in harmony with each other, right? And each one wants to claim more and more, and to step on other people, other countries, other everything. Okay? It starts with the person. Start with the person. Again, I think this is where we should stop, and this is where we should actually focus on this week again, which is live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. How can I manage that paradox? Being a servant by choice to God, but still living as a free person. And what are the implications of living as a free person? What does it mean? How can I, impact other people by being free? Imagine two people are fighting with each other, right? For whatever reason. And each one said, no, I will never let go of this. I am the right and you are the wrong. And imagine that same couple, one of them said, what? I don't care. Whatever you're wanting, whatever you're fighting for, here you go. I don't want. This is the most strongest and powerful example of freedom. Like what? I don't want this. If this will break that relationship, if this will take away from my peace, if this will make me under the burden, the burden and the bondage of the enemy, I don't want it. Take it. Take it. It's the most freeing thing to experience. And to come to the Lord, Lord, I am your doulos. You do whatever you want to do. I trust in you. I trust in you. This is the problem, that we don't trust in him and we keep fighting for our own things. We need to take everything with our own hands. And thinking that if we let go of things, we are losing and we are the weak and we are like, no, it's the opposite, 100% the opposite. Let's think and pray more about that paradox. Slaves of God or free in the world. Continue next Friday, God willing, again with more and more of chapter 2. God.
I'd like to thank you so humbly friend. All my life I've been understanding this word,
The visitation, the day of judgment. No. It's the day when the Lord is come to visit those who are in need. Yes. Let's pray. Thank you. Yes. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, God. Lord Jesus, we pray to you, saying, our Father who art in heaven. May the love of God the Father, the grace of his only begotten Son, the King of the Holy Spirit, with you. Go in peace, peace with you all. Have a good night and see you tomorrow, whoever is here, and next week, whoever is online. Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye.